Imagine being on an airplane that has just taken off, cruising smoothly between Tel Aviv and Paris. The calm voice of the pilot echoes over the intercom, and everyone is smiling. But suddenly, the silence is shattered. Four determined individuals, armed and shouting loudly, declare, "This airplane is under our control." Seconds stretch into eternity. Eyes freeze in the nightmare of reality. The flight's destination changes, not to Paris, but to the heart of Africa. What began in fear ends with an immortal name: Operation Thunderbolt, or the Entebbe raid, one of the boldest, swiftest, and most precise rescue operations in human history. But how did a small group of Israeli soldiers, thousands of kilometers from home, deep in enemy territory, manage to free nearly 250 hostages? This is a story about an impossible decision and the individuals who turned the phrase, "nothing is impossible," into reality. On June 27, 1976, a routine flight from Tel Aviv to Paris, with a stop in Athens, became one of the most tense crises of the 1970s. The Boeing 727 of ELAL, carrying over 240 passengers, was in the sky when four hijackers, two Palestinians from the PLO and two Westerners from extremist leftist groups, took control. At first, the passengers believed the incident to be temporary. However, the terrorists had a specific demand: the release of dozens of Palestinian prisoners in Israel and several others in different countries. They warned that if their demands were not met within a few days, the hostages would be killed one by one. After several hours of tense flying, their final destination appeared on radar screens: a remote location in East Africa, Entebbe Airport in Uganda, an airport that was at that time under the complete influence of the notorious dictator Idi Amin, a man who called himself a friend of revolutions and an enemy of Israel. The plane landed on the runway, and the passengers' world plunged into darkness. The hijackers transferred them to the old terminal of the airport, a place once built with the help of Israeli engineers, a cruel irony of history. In the following days, three countries, Israel, France, and Uganda, were caught in a wave of fear, doubt, and negotiation. The Israeli government, under pressure from public opinion, made a decision that would change the course of history. Benjamin Netanyahu, the commander of the Sayeret Matkal unit, uttered a phrase that would resonate in decision-making meetings: "If we do not act to save our people, who will?" In those same hours, deep within Israel's military bases, hundreds of officers were secretly focused on the plans for the Ugandan airport. A life-sized model of the airport was constructed. Soldiers practiced the scenario of entry, engagement, and exit dozens of times. No mistakes were allowed. Thousands of kilometers away, the lack of air support on enemy soil, and the possibility of intervention by the Ugandan army, all factors that placed this operation on the brink of reality and disbelief. Operation Code: Thunderbolt, Lightning. In the midnight hours of July 4th, for Hercules C-130 transport planes took off from the Sinai Desert. The lights were off, flying at the lowest possible altitude to stay off radar. Inside the cabin, there was absolute silence. In the eyes of the soldiers, only one phrase shone: No hostage will be left behind. After nearly 7 hours of flight, the planes entered Ugandan airspace under the cover of night and silently landed at Entebbe Airport. In the cargo hold of one of the planes was a dark Jeep, exactly like the vehicles used by the dictator Idi Amin's entourage. The plan was to make the entry of the forces initially appear as if it were the president himself arriving. The moment the aircraft's wheels touched the runway, the operation began. The doors opened, and the special forces exited the plane silently, like shadows. But suddenly, one of the Ugandan soldiers noticed and shouted. Moments later, the sound of gunfire echoed in the darkness, and the night of Entebbe turned into a hell of flames and smoke. In less than 3 minutes, the Sayeret Makal forces stormed into the hostages' terminal. Cries, gunfire, and sobs intertwined. The hijackers were taken down one by one, and within 90 minutes, the operation was complete. 102 hostages were freed. 3 passengers were killed, and only one Israeli officer died in the battle. Yonatan Netanyahu, the older brother of Benjamin Netanyahu. His death became the emotional and bittersweet face of this victory. As the last Hercules plane left the skies over Entebbe, a heavy silence fell over the control tower. In less than 90 minutes, Israel had conducted one of the most complex anti-terror operations of the century from a distance of over 4,000 kilometers. The next day, the world looked in disbelief at the newspaper headlines. The front pages were filled with words like "Impossible Mission," "The Lightning Raid," and "Israel's Miracle." In Israel, the streets were filled with flags and tears of joy. But beyond the military victory, a larger message was sent to the world. If you have precise planning, unparalleled courage, and absolute belief in your mission, no distance, no enemy, and no fear can stand in your way. Operation Thunderbolt was more than a military battle. It was a story of faith in the country, loyalty to compatriots, and the insistence on the belief that no one gets left behind. Decades later, this operation is still taught in military academies around the world, not just as a successful strategy, but as an example of the fusion of intelligence, bravery, and humanity in the midst of death. And perhaps that is what we draw inspiration from, that in the darkest moments, there is always room for the right decision. If you felt the thrill and admiration from this narrative, hit the subscribe button now, because more stories are on the way. Stories about moments when history held its breath.